Hi everyone, it's April now. As you can see, there's still a lot of snow on the ground, but the days are slowly getting warmer. I've got all my hardy trees out on the bench now, all the pines and larches and cedars, and I still have my maples and the more delicate trees inside in the basement, but they'll be coming out soon. This winter my greenhouse, the plastic got destroyed. We had a really heavy snowfall and the plastic on top was quite brittle from the sun from the previous summer, and it kind of all collapsed in, and then we had a big windstorm and it just shredded all the plastic. So I'm going to redo that this year. There's still lots of snow on the ground, but it's slowly warming up and it's time to do some work on our pines. The first pine we're going to be tackling is my Austrian pine. It needs two things done to it. The tree's never been wired and it's in desperate need of wiring. A lot of these branches can get formed and shaped now. The other thing we want to do to it is do some thinning. There's buds all over the branches, which is good. It gives you a lot of choices, but it's starting to get very cluttered and we want our branches to flow nicely, so we're going to have to do some thinning and pruning to sort the structure out. So let's bring the tree inside and we'll start doing some styling work on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start on the lowest branch, and what I want to do is get some downward movement to the branch instead of coming upright. So how we're going to do this is we're going to try using a guy wire to pull it down. So I've got a little pad of hockey tape, and I'm going to put that on top of the tree, and we're going to feed a wire underneath the pot. If I can get it underneath there. There we go. And we're going to bring the wire around. This is just copper wire. And we're going to try not to squish any buds or anything that are back there. We'll check the placement before we tighten it down. Whoops. Okay. And we're going to bring the wires together and twist them. And as we twist them, it'll tighten the wire and bring the branch down. Just like this. And it's fairly flexible, so we can't bring it down a whole lot, but we'll do it in stages. Slowly tighten the wire as time goes on. So I'm going to make this, where I'm tightening the wire, I'm going to make it down low at the front so I can access it easily to tighten it every now and then. So I just want to bring the wire around a bit, maybe to there. And we'll start crossing the wires here. So I've got my first wire roughly in place. It's not tightened yet. And before I tighten it, I want to put a wire on the other side of the tree. Just because if we tighten it too much on this side, it's going to want to lift the tree out of the pot. So we want to put another guy wire on this side to keep it stable in the pot. Okay, so I'm putting the second wire in now. We're just going to feed that through the pot, underneath the pot. And here it comes on the other side. And we're going to bring it around our second branch. There we go. Looks good. And again, we'll just cross it in the front here. And we'll start tightening them up. So once I get them fairly tight, I'll put the pads in place to protect the tree. This one's getting fairly tight, so I can put the pad in there. Like that. And we'll start tightening the other side. And the wire I'm using is just electrician's wire. It comes in a roll like this. And you can get a roll like this for about $20. And it's fairly, you can bend it quite easily. It'll do most of your wiring jobs without buying, you know, expensive annealed bonsai wire. So I'm going to tighten those up and we'll come back when she's ready to start pulling the limbs down. Okay, so we've got our guy wires in place and I've tensioned this one so it's just starting to put some pressure on the branch. And we're going to start to tighten the branch, the first branch now. So we're starting to tighten here. And you can see the branch bending down as we twist the wires together. Hopefully my wires won't break. Not to mention the branches. So we're just going to test how much we're pulling these down by. We could come a little further. So here we go. Okay, so we've got our main two branches pulled down. There's still some more flex in them. I could probably pull them down a little further, but we're going to let it sit like that for now. You can see they still flex down. So we're going to let them just recover like that, and then we'll slowly pull them down over the years. So you can see we're getting some cascading branches here now, which is nice. And our next step will be to arrange this branch structure on the first branch. So we're going to do that with wiring. Okay, so we've got the first branch wired up. It's everything's sort of going downhill a bit. And that'll do for the first wiring of the first branch. And we'll go on to the second branch now. So on the second branch, we're doing some thinning. There's a lot of needles or buds on the interior of the branches here that we're going in and pruning out. If we wanted to shorten a branch, they're good buds to prune back to, but I think for now we want to get rid of them. So you can see the second branch structure, we've cleaned it up a lot, and there still remains some wiring to be done to get the branches to flow nicely and fan out. So that'll be the next step. Okay, so we've got the first and second branch wired up now, and they're quite downhill or sloping down, but as the new buds come up, it'll look more natural. So we're kind of exaggerating the downward droop at first. So on to the next branch. So I'm working on the back branch now. We're just cleaning it up structurally, and then we'll start wiring it. So we've got all the branches done up to here so far. So we're slowly making our way towards the apex. And I've been thinning out some of these branches to get nice flow lines to the branches. So after about 3 hours, we're almost done wiring. These branches, they're cascading a little too much, but as the new tips grow in, they'll kind of curve up a bit, which should look okay. The last thing we have to do is start arranging the apex, just to get some of these branches in a nice crown. I added some blocks in under here to pull it down a little more. I got daring and went for a little extra, which I think looks better, and the branch seems quite flexible. I'm actually quite surprised how flexible these branches are, considering it's a fairly old tree. So it's good. So we'll keep going. We got to finish the apex. So all the wiring is complete now. I've arranged a few branches in the apex. As I said, some of these branches are a little exaggerated in their droopiness. They need to come up at the tips a bit, but this is just the first wiring. The next step for this tree will be let it come out, the buds elongate in spring, and then we'll equalize the bigger of the tree. And the reason we're wiring it before spring is because as the tree grows, the branches will set in this position, and then the wire can be removed later on. So the wire is just a temporary method of bending the branches into the desired location until they've grown enough that they set in that position. And some of the branches, like the smaller ones, they'll set this spring in that position. Some of the other ones, the major bends here, might take a couple of years before they set in their position. And the branches always come up slightly after you take the wire off. They may stay there for a while, but then slowly they'll start creeping up again. So you have to keep wiring the tree until it eventually sets in that position, which it will eventually. So I thought, I was looking at the proportions of this tree, and we want to develop this apex into more of a rounded canopy. So again, I was out looking at Austrian pines. There's not very many pictures of Austrian pines on the internet. I could only find a handful, and not very good pictures, not mature trees. So I went around and I took photographs and movies of all the ones I could find. They weren't great big giant trees, but they're the biggest I could find in this area. So we'll look at those, and gives us some ideas of, future styling and developing our canopies and our flat tops to give it that mature pine tree look. So we'll do that now, and then we'll come back and check the tree out in a little more detail, and then that'll be it. So here we are studying Austrian pines again. So here's a fairly mature one. It's got a nice crown on it. So here's the base of the tree, and again, not much surface roots. It's there's a few large ones, but not too many. So let's have a look at the top of the tree. Go up the trunk. You can see there's a few scars from previous branches, but fairly smooth. We go up into the crown and you can see a lot of branches. And they're not straight, they kind of have slight movement to them. And there's no foliage on the inner part of the tree. It's all on the canopy. Really nice. Some of the longer branches have lots of movement, and the foliage is right out at the tips where the sun gets to it. Here's another Austrian pine, not quite as mature, and it's more of a triangular shape. The crown is starting to get fuller, and the foliage on the bottom part of the tree is, out at the tips and a little sparser than up top. So here's an example of a really crown-heavy Austrian pine. You can see the trunk has inverse taper on it. It starts off kind of skinny and gets a little fatter as it goes up. So here we are at the base of the tree. She's a big old tree. You can see the roots, not too many surface roots, but there are some. If we come over to this side, you can see some surface roots coming out. Now let's go up and look at the tree. A few tumors on the side of it. Goes way up. Here's a look at the crown of the tree. You can see there's a lot of dead lower branches. And they're pretty zigzaggy, if that's a word. And the crown's pretty full. There's a big squirrel's nest at the top of the tree up there. Here's another Austrian pine nearby. And you can see it has absolutely zero surface roots. That trunk just goes into the ground. So let's go up and have a look at the tree. Again, it's a tall one, very apex heavy. Really nice. Here's one of my favorite trees, the twin trunk one from our last video. The other tree that I said wasn't in too good of health last time, well, about a month after I filmed that video, they cut it down. So let's go have a look at the stump. So here it is, that's what's left of the tree. Now I counted the rings on it. It was about 145 years old. So that's the size of it. Yeah. We're looking at the crown of that twin trunk Austrian pine, and you can see what happens at the top when a tree gets old. Instead of getting that single leader apex, they start to spread horizontally. The tree just can't grow any higher, so the branches start going out horizontally. And they get really twisty. So let's enter the matrix and get back to the bonsai benches. So here's all the foliage that I pruned off when I cleaned up the branch structure. And you can see on this branch quite clearly, well, it doesn't help, how we've cleaned up our structure. So we have one branch dividing into 2, and then into 4, and then into 8, and so on as it ramifies. And we've done that all throughout the tree, is just cleaned up the structure, getting rid of unwanted buds. And it improves the structure a lot. You can kind of see quite a bit of that now. And you might be wondering what this block of wood here, I wanted to bring this branch down a little further. So by squeezing these 2 wires together, I could get the branch to bend down a little more. If I tighten this copper wire up anymore here, it'll break the copper wire. It just twists off and it springs back. So I didn't want to tighten the copper wire up anymore, so I tied it across here with some copper wire on the bottom, and then I stuffed some spacers in here to kind of give some pull on the branch, stretch it down a bit. Yeah, so that's it. It's, you know, it's undergone quite a change in the last little while. And, yeah, Nigel Saunders for KW Bonsai. We'll see you next time.